In order to create a safe environment, adults need to be concerned with reducing risk in the environment, recognizing the signs of distress and warning signs in relationships, responding to distress, and reporting concerns and suspicions of abuse. Sexual abuse can be defined as sexual exploitation of a child not developmentally capable of understanding or resisting the contact, or who may be psychologically or socially dependent on the offender, and any inappropriate, suggested, or actual sexual exposing or touch between an adult and a child. The activity is inappropriate because the child does not understand the nature of the request and or is coerced into the activity through deceit, threat, or because the activity is offered under the guise of normal affection. Physical abuse is a non-accidental physical injury to a child caused by an adult which results in or threatens serious injury. Emotional abuse is an important factor in all forms of abuse. To be hurt so much by someone who should care and protect is very damaging to the emotional development of the child. Neglect is the failure of a parent or guardian to provide a child with adequate food, clothing, shelter, medical care, education, or supervision. Sexual abuse is defined as any physical contact with a child by an adult or older child in a position of power over the child for the sexual gratification of the adult or older child. Sexual abuse is any inappropriate touching, oral, or genital contact of a child by an adult for the sole gratification of the adult. Emotional sexual abuse is viewed as sexual behavior or pornography, sexualized language, or intrusive questions with a child by an adult. A perpetrator must meet these 4 preconditions in order for the perpetrator to act upon his or her sexual urge. These preconditions are motivation to sexually abuse, overcoming internal inhibitions, overcoming external inhibitions, and overcoming resistance of the child. To prevent abuse, we continue to implement strategies to address the 4 preconditions of abuse. Adults with motivation to abuse, background checks. Decrease internal inhibitions, code of conduct, supervision, and self-care. Absence of external social inhibitions, the 2-adult rule, accountability and boundaries, parent-child education. Breakdown in the resistance of the child, parent and child education. There is no specific psychological test to rule out motivation. The best predictor of future behavior is past behavior. It is not the assumption that we are all would-be perpetrators, but rather that we all could be rescuers of a child. If we all agree to the same guidelines, it will be easier to identify when something is wrong. Seek supervision to remain focused on professional responsibilities and to hold firm to the sexual boundaries of the pastoral relationship. Use of drugs and alcohol serves to impair your judgment and decrease your normal inhibitions. Know your limitations and vulnerabilities. Recognize impairment. Maintain a healthy lifestyle and seek help when needed. Safety in numbers allows the following: 2-adult standard to be in place, buddy system for trips and events, presence of other cleared adults, gives access to help, and strengthens resistance and keeps activities observable. Know the ratio of cleared adults per number of youth for any event or function. Use both male and female chaperones for trips and events. Use caution in one-to-one contacts. Meet in areas that are visible and accessible, that is, with open doors, or a public area, or an open room with windows. Do not conduct one-on-one meetings in your home, private quarters, or even large assemblies. Take caution in moving away from the group. Avoid driving alone with youth. If it is necessary to transport youth, be sure other adults are present. Precondition number 3, requires that the adult acknowledge and respect the power differential in relationships with young people by recognizing your role as a representative of the church. Do not use coercion, threats, or excessive flattery. Do use descriptive praise, unconditional positive regard, and logical consequences. Provide written rules with pictorial clues for young children. Be consistent in enforcing rules and evaluate appropriateness of expectations. Avoid physical contact that might be misinterpreted or misconstrued, like roughhousing, tickling, or flirtatious behavior. Avoid any covert or overt sexual behavior, such as seductive speech or gestures, physical contact, or exposure to inappropriate media. Respect the boundaries established by the youth. Be aware of signs of discomfort and respect each individual's need for personal space. Clearly state that the contact is uncomfortable for you or inappropriate for the setting. For example, if a child demonstrates overt affection, such as a frontal hug. Identify an appropriate behavior, such as a side hug, or a high five, or a pat on the back. While you appreciate the child's expression of affection, as the adult, you need to let the child know you respect them by setting clear boundaries. In all interactions with young people, the adult needs always to be conscious of why they engage in ministry with young people. For example, to foster their spiritual growth or witness the faith. Adults need to consciously meet their own needs for affection, intimacy, attraction, and affirmation in their personal relationships. As adults, be aware of how all interactions are perceived. Encourage youth to communicate their concerns by demonstrating empathy, active listening, unconditional positive regard, response when a child indicates discomfort or uneasiness, acknowledge observed signs of discomfort, clarify intentions, apologize if appropriate, and ask for input regarding comfortable boundaries. Discuss limits of confidentiality, making no promise ever not to tell. Stress that confidentiality is a one-way street. You will strive to maintain their privacy, but you, as an adult leader, are free to share anything that pertains to them with their parents or others in authority. As adults, we are all role models, and thus, as church leaders, we are called to exhibit behavior consistent with church doctrine. If our behavior falls short, we need to be empathetic, take steps to repair the relationship, remind young people of our imperfections as human beings. Report any red flags in adult-child relationships or violations of the code of conduct to the appropriate authority. Report suspicions of abuse. Utilize a team approach in decision-making and in the supervision of youth. Always be conscious of our adult-to-child ratio requirements. Teach youth about the signs of a right relationship versus an abusive one by word and example. Discuss safe boundaries such as good versus bad touches. Help youth identify their feelings. Affirm children's rights to set personal boundaries and encourage communication when boundaries are violated. And affirm children's right to say no to unwelcome contact. Inform parents, children, and staff of policies regarding safe environments, intervention, and reporting abuse. As appropriate to schools' athletic programs, religious education programs, parish activities, and so forth. Review those policies regularly, distribute written policies, and monitor compliance. In summary, as we mentioned, the preconditions for abuse are answered by the safe environment principles, such as adults with motivation to abuse, background checks, decreased internal inhibitions, code of conduct, supervision, and self-care, absence of external and social inhibitions, the two-adult rule, accountability and boundaries, parent-child education, and breakdown in the resistance of the child and parent education.